Well, good morning, everybody. It's like we got a few more people just getting logged in and connecting to the audio. Good morning, Taylor.
Good morning. How are you?
I am good. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
Did you
Pretty
get through
good.
all those storms okay yesterday?
Yes. Yep. Not too bad.
Good,
I was
good.
out and about though, so that wasn't very fun.
No, that's never. I got stuck in the last one at a restaurant when the hail was coming down, and I kept thinking, just please let me not have massive hail damage to my car.
Yeah. Don't recommend it. Had that a couple years ago.
Yes, I remember that. You got it really bad. You had it to your car, your house, and yeah, that was not good.
Yep. A little bit of everything. So, well, we only have a few on right now. It looks like it's a lot more are joining. I see the numbers going up, so that's good. I just wanted to let everybody know in the chat, I added a link to our YouTube channel where this will be recorded, as well as a lot of our other webinars and playlists on all of our products. So you'll see that link in there. And then I also added a link to the Education Corner, which is any upcoming classes that we have April through July, I believe is in there. So go ahead and check those out because we'll be showing a lot of different products today. And then a lot of these classes are deeper classes into them are in the Education Corner.
All right, so give her about 30 more seconds to grab your coffee, and then we can go ahead and get started. I'm gonna grab a little tea here, actually. Need a little more caffeine this morning.
Just so we know too, I'm sure people would have commented, but there's a questions panel. Go ahead and let us know that you can hear us and see us okay. Colleen and I will be teaming up on this class. So while she's demonstrating and going over her parts, I will be watching the questions. So feel free to ask any questions. I will respond directly to them. And then if it's something that I think that the whole group should know as well, then I will interrupt Colleen and ask the question, and then vice versa. When I take over, she'll be monitoring those questions and bring those up live in class as well if it's necessary. So, but if you guys do have any technical issues with anything going on, make sure you call our tech support because we will be doing everything live. So we can't help with like something wrong with your computer or browser or anything like that while we're teaching the class, of course. So
That does come
um,
up sometimes.
sometimes, yeah, yep.
And thank
All
you,
right,
Violet, for
so
letting us
thank you,
know that you
Violet.
can
Yep.
hear us. And thank you, I think it's Connery. Thank you as well. So I think we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, sounds good.
All all right. So, first and foremost, thanks so much for joining us. I did want to let you know that I did place a lot of the kind of the cheat sheets, if you will, in your GoToWebinar panel. Everything from how to clone a listing to everything that we're going to cover today. And as Taylor mentioned, we're going to kind of do this in parts. I'm going to take the first part and walk you through some of the software things you need to know, some time-saving tips and techniques. Taylor did a great job with the video in front of this class. If you got to see this, we are recording this class. And the reason that we record most of our classes is we know not every day you put in a new listing. I wish I should be so lucky I should be able to put in a new listing every day, but we know it may be next month before you add in your new listing, and you might just need a quick refresher. So what we do is we pretty much record all of our classes except our specialty classes. And we put those in our playlist, as Taylor mentioned, where you can actually go to our YouTube channel. You can see all of these classes. So if you miss anything today, don't panic. That link will be going out to you as well that will show you where you can find this class afterward. And like I said, it's not like we put a listing in every single day, so it's a great way to kind of have a refresher. Those cheat sheets are also very helpful if you just need a quick, did I do this? Did I do this? Kind of like a follow along step by step. And you'll find that again in your GoToWebinar panel under the handout section. They're PDFs, so you literally can just save them to your computer so that you have a good reference. And really, I'm excited to kind of take you on a tour of everything you need to know A to Z when you're you're getting ready to put in your new listing, hence the name of our class, right? Listings, listings, listings is what it's all about. We're going to cover it A to Z. Where we're going to start is really on the prep side. Where are you getting the information? How are you pulling your comparables? Where are you getting your paperwork from? And then Taylor's going to take it into what she's great at, getting the information about your listing out there, communication. She has a degree in photography and communications, which is very helpful. She'll show you what you need to know when you're getting your listing out, ways to take better pictures, ways to promote your photos with captions and labels and descriptions. So all of that good stuff. So where we're actually going to start though is on the prep side. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Really, when you're going on a listing appointment, it's all about being prepared. I'm a huge, as a licensee myself, as a realtor for the last 25 years, I can tell you it really is all about doing the prep and finding the right comparables. But of course, you want to have all of that information when you're getting ready to prepare your listing paperwork. So where I'm actually going to start is in the MLS. The first thing I want to know is when I get that call to go and list a home, has it recently sold? Did they recently buy it? When did they purchase it? I do want to see if there's an MLS listing ticket that shows me what they bought it for, when it last sold, what type of financing, all of those types of details. Also, from those listing tickets, we can also see how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, and that's going to certainly allow us to start building our information that we need for our comparables. The other thing to keep in mind is sometimes it hasn't ever been listed before. Maybe it's an original owner. Maybe they've lived there 50 years before there was an MLS. So keep in mind that there's two ways that you're going to start. One, you want to check the MLS. You do want to see if it has been listed. So most properties, we've got over 15 years of history in Paragon. So most properties at one time or another have probably changed hands over the course of 15 years. But again, I'm going to show you both ways. If it has been listed, I'm going to show you how to do that. But I'm also going to show you if it has never been listed, how you can do your homework there as well. Start with this property. This was a property I closed not that long ago. And this is where I want to start getting all of those details. And the first thing I want to do is I like to generally go right up to this, this quick find box or the power search at the top. And I simply type in the address. That is going to show me. So let me go ahead and do it live here so you can kind of see it. That's going to show me if this property has recently closed. I'm going to be able to pull those records. And as you can see, this property actually closed 3 times. So I'm just going to click on this listings 3. And I'm going to basically open up those 3 listing records. And one of those listings that you're looking at right here, you'll see these quick action links. And if you're not familiar with what those are, they're basically ways to jump into these other programs, but for this specific property, which saves you a lot of time. The last thing I want to do is have to log out of Paragon, log into BSNA or log into Realist, wait for that to load, now find the municipality, now type in the address. That's a lot of extra steps. So really, by going in and simply clicking on this, and I apologize, it kind of looks like a garbage can icon. It is supposed to be a government pillar, but Brian, our chief technical officer, assures me when he tried to shrink the government pillar, I think it looks a little more like a garbage can, but I think you get the idea. It's not where you're going to delete the listing. It's literally where you're going to go click on it, and it's going to take you right into the public records of this particular property. So let's actually do that. When you're searching a property, I like to search, yes, the MLS to see, when the last time it closed was, but I also want to pull from BSNA and Realist. Now, do let me state this one time before we go any further. If you are joining us from one of our vendored MLSs, we do understand that every area, like up in the UP, the BSNA is not used quite as much as it is down here. So you may see different products, or you may see something today. If you don't know what that is, your board maybe hasn't provided it, you can certainly ask your board, is this a service that we have? So just keep in mind, if you do see something that you've never heard of before, it may not be as popular at your area. And sometimes it's just the geography. Again, way up where it's very rural in the UP, some of their tax records aren't quite as updated, so not everybody uses BSNA up there. So I just wanted to kind of point that out so we don't get a lot of people saying, well, wait a minute, I've never heard of that before. BSNA basically is the live public record server. There's been a lot of initiative to try to get better tax records in the state of Michigan. I don't know if you know this, but we're actually sixth worst in the nation, which is not a great thing for our tax records. And it's because if you look at the tax records in California, they have over 50 fields that are required to be filled in. And that's because that's how they're keeping their tax records current. Unfortunately, here we don't have that. And there are some areas where you may only get three fields of information. Up by Caseville, I was recently up there, and three fields of tax information for a property. It's crazy. So big initiative going on right now. We've been asking the Michigan Realtors to help us. That's one of the things, one of the ways that they can really help us get better tax data. So when you're talking to Michigan Realtors, be sure to reiterate that. That's something we need here in Michigan. All right. So also, when we're on the BSNA record, this is really where we're starting to do our homework. So let's take a look. We can clearly see when it was built, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what's the square footage. I can see it's built on a basement. I can see the size of the basement. I can see the sales history. I can also see here generally if it has gone into foreclosure or not. I can see the garage area. I can see, does it have a full basement or a half basement? I can see here that it is a brick full basement, 1,361 square feet. All of this is contained right here, so I can start doing my homework. I can even see how large the porch is. Now, what I like about this as an agent, I recently listed a property in Warren, and the property unfortunately had fallen into disrepair. It didn't have a C of O. There were some renters in it that really let it go. And when I pulled the information up in BSNA, it also included that there were some outstanding taxes that hadn't been paid. There was also $1,000 unpaid water bill. Now, on this particular property that was only worth about 50,000, you can imagine that $1,000 water bill is going to directly impact that seller's bottom line. When we're doing that net out sheet, that is definitely going to have a big swing for that seller. So these are all things I want to be prepared. I want to be able to ask those questions. Another example, recently had a call of just the nicest lady. She called me and said, her mother had passed away. She had inherited her condo, and she said, I got to sell. The taxes are killing me. Can you come and list the property? So met with her, but before I did, I went into the tax history, which of course is also on your public records information. And I could see she had almost $7,000 of unpaid property taxes. And in that city, it just didn't make sense to me. So in meeting with her, I presented the tax bills, and she said, I don't know, why the taxes are so high. Well, it had turned out she had never owned a home before. They were not homesteaded, and they should have been because that was her primary residence when it was put into her name. But through a simple oversight, so we called the city. They actually rebated a lot of that money back to her. She only owed a small fraction. She did end up still selling, thankfully, but she became a client for life because we actually went down to the city. They explained what had happened. They made those changes for her, gave her a receipt, and she was so happy. So a lot of times it is really us doing our due diligence that can handle a lot of these problems before we ever even meet with them. We're starting to gather that information so we can ask the right question and handle those objections even before they arise. So one of the things I also like to do here is you never want to, and Taylor's an expert at this, she has a whole class on this, but you never want to use someone else's photos in the MLS. And Taylor teaches an awesome copyright class along with our attorney, where you can actually get some legal Con Ed credits if you haven't got those. But what we do show is right here in the BSNA record, there is a public records photo. Now, I'm not going to use this to ever market or anything like that, but I do like to use this as the photo for the front cover of my CMA. So generally, I will click on that photo, and not only do you see photos here many times, but you'll see things like Coupa Casa floor plans. You'll see floor plans in here quite often. There's actually a floor plan in this particular one. That's why I used it as an example. But I do like to recommend you want to have a nice image on the front of your CMA. So what I generally do is I'll just do a save image as. I'll save it to my desktop. Again, I'm not using these for marketing purposes in any way. What I am doing, I'm simply gathering. I don't want one of those ugly Google overhead shots on my CMA if I haven't been to the listing before, especially if you're listing a property that's maybe 2 hours away. Kind of go and really drive 2 hours to take a couple photos and then come back and do your CMA, right? That really wouldn't make sense. So in this case, I want that beautiful cover photo. So I'm going to use this particular photo. The other thing that I want to mention is I always save where I got my data. I'm a huge Floyd Wickman fan. If anybody knows who Floyd is, he was an old real estate coach, really funny, always told, always said, you really need to look um, through the eyes of the seller. They want to know, where did you gather your information? And they want copies of that. And so I like to have this right in my CMA, because I generally do a leave behind copy, or I'll email them a copy of the CMA. So they have this information. They can see exactly where the tax information came from, or exactly where the square footage came from. Because many times they'll say, well, we added on a back bedroom. Where did you get your square footage? I want to be able to show that I got it right from the live assessors database. And that's actually what BSNA is. So I do generally print this as a PDF and save it on my desktop. And the reason I do that is because I pull it into my CMA, which I'm going to show you. So there's this little print button right up here. I generally will print this as a PDF, store it on my desktop so I can pull that in. The other place I want to check for great information, and generally it will have a lot of similar information, but I like to always check for discrepancies. And I'll tell you a true story that happened actually when I listed the house next to this house. So if this little red button that you see right on the listing, that is Realist. And Realist is available in all 83 counties of Michigan. But what you'll see here is it's got a lot of the same information, but you'll also notice that occasionally there'll be some discrepancies. So as I scroll down, I can see, again, the square footage of the garage. I can see the basement. I can see the square footage. So I know that that's probably accurate information, because both records are pulling that. The difference between BSNA and Realist, just in case you don't know, is BSNA is the actual live assessor's records. And we use the live assessor's records versus many other MLSs. They will simply pull a feed. Why having the live assessor's record is so important is because if let's say Joe is going to getting ready to schedule his closing, and he noticed that the seller still has not paid their summer tax bill, the seller can actually go down to the assessor's office. They can pay it the day before closing. When the assessor marks it closed, the title company will be able to see it immediately upon them closing out that bill. So there is some true value of having that live record versus what the other MLSs in the state use, which is a feed, which takes sometimes several days for that information to be conveyed. So I'm a huge fan of how we do that. I think it really sets us apart. But as I scroll down, a lot of times, not only will you see if the property has gone into foreclosure here, but you will see refis here. So I can see maybe actually this is a good one, because it does show that there was a refi on this particular property. I can see that. But the other thing it also shows is it will show you if there's a discrepancy, like where this says MLS1. If there is a tax and MLS discrepancy, you'll generally see that on the same line. Why I point that out is true story. I swear, if you do real estate long enough, you always get these crazy stories, right? I went to a listing appointment. Clearly, in the MLS photo from the agent who had it listed before me, it was a two-story home. The MLS records all said it was a two-story home, but the BSNA city record said it was a one-story brick ranch. Okay, so clearly I pull up, it's 2 stories, happened to be the home next to this particular home that you're looking at. And the gentleman kind of spoke a little bit of broken English. And so we got into the conversation about the one-story versus the two-story. And he explained that he put the second level on himself, which was wonderful. But then I asked the next important question: did you ever pull a permit? To which his answer was no. So our next call was, well, we have to get a permit for this, right? So long story short, those are those great questions that you do want to ask. If there is outstanding taxes, if there is outstanding water bills, if for some reason it looks like it's two-story, but it really shows one story everywhere in the city records, these are all great questions that we want to be aware of. I also saved this record. The more information that you're pulling into your CMA about the homework that you've done on this house, it shows one, you're the Girl Scout or Boy Scout, right? You're doing your homework, you're fully prepared, you're able to answer more questions by having all of that information right in front of them. Plus, they're seeing you did your extra homework, you did your due diligence. All right. So now we've got our realist record, we've got our BSNA record, we've also got our photo. The next step is clearly going in and displaying to that homeowner that we know what's going on in their market. And even if you're brand new, I'm going to show you a tip or trick today to show that you are an expert in that area. So let's take a look at our next thing in the MLS, and that's going to be what I love, the fast stats included in your market stats program. So let's go there next.
Hey,
Most of
Colleen,
your Yes.
before you move on to market stats, there's a question, you might have addressed this at the beginning, but is there a reason why Realist may not be available for some people?
Yes. So if you're coming in from one of our vendored MLSs, and I kind of touched on some areas have better coverage in certain products than others. Some areas, like when I went up to Caseville, their BSNA is like non-existent because their tax records aren't quite there yet. And so their city assessors really haven't gotten on getting their records online. It's a very small town. It's kind of a touristy area. It's really I tell people it's kind of only open spring, summer, and early fall because that town is one of those sleepier towns in the winter. Just there are some areas even in the UP where you'll go up. I was there last year and they actually had signs in the window, see you in May, because really in December there's not a lot of traveling due to the weather that goes on up there. So some areas don't get the best realist coverage. Some MLSs also don't provide realist, and usually it has to go hand in hand. If there's not great coverage in realist, then that particular MLS may not provide that product. You can call your board or call your MLS and say, hey, is this a product we could get if they don't provide it? But if you have it, one way to know if you do have it, right under your tax icon, if your particular MLS, if you are not a My Rural Source member, let's say you're a member of the Upper Peninsula or a member of the Bay County Board of Realtors or the Saginaw Board or a different board, we vendor 10 other MLSs. So if you are a member of one of those boards, if you go to taxes, you'll see, if you see realist here, that means that your board provides that product, your board or MLS. If you go to taxes and you see BSNA under there, that will mean that you can search those. There may be a fee if your MLS does not pay that fee for you. So as one of our perks or one of East Central's perks, the Flint Area Association used to be the Flint area, now it's the East Central Association of Realtors. Many counties are actually provided at no cost. So instead of you having to pay the $6 per record fee in some cases, not every city charges, but some of them do. But you'll know that if you click on BSNA and you click on that and you don't see that BSNA linking integration, that just means it's really not available. Or if you don't see this little, I kind of call it the crash can icon because that's what it looks like, then it's probably not deep linked for your particular MLS. So good question. Good question. All right. So let's go into, now we've pulled the information for our subject listing property. We now want to start doing our searches. So really, when you're doing a search for comparables, you don't want to use the quick search. You don't want to use the power search. You're really looking for comparables that are going to be like yours. And if you're brand new to real estate, oh, I'm sorry, let me go back into market stats first. If you're brand new into real estate, a CMA is a comparative market analysis. And what that means is I'm looking to find out apples for apples. What did this brick ranch sell for? Because I'm getting ready to list a brick ranch that's 3 doors down. Is it comparable? Does it have the same amount of bathrooms and bedrooms? Is the square footage approximate? But the other thing I want to do is I want to educate my seller on what's going on in their city. Because right now, every city is different. I've never, it's kind of interesting. We're seeing, a couple cities that are still doing, we call them price improvements now, right? Instead of price reductions. Back in the day, we called them price reductions. Now they're price improvements because it sounds better. But there are other cities where things are just still multiple offers out the door over and over and over again. So it is kind of a time where educating the seller on exactly what's going on with their particular listing is more important than ever. So the next product we're going to look at is also in Paragon under resources. And this is going to be found in the market stats program, which by the way is under social media and lead gen. But I am going to show you how with 2 clicks, you can be an absolute expert on what's going on in that homeowner's marketplace. So again, we went to resources. We're going to go under social media and lead gen. We're going to click on this market stats. Market stats does some amazing things. There's a whole class on this, and you can create custom graphs and you can post them out onto social media. You can even tie it into our squeeze page. We show you this in our lead generation class and our tools for tackling low inventory classes, but there are some really cool things. But we're going to skip that because we're going to go easy peasy today. But we want to go right up here to this fast stats button. All right, so we're going to click on fast stats. And our whole goal is to show that seller sitting in that chair in that city what is going on in the marketplace while we're sitting there. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to say that my my listing appointment is in Macomb County. And maybe it is in Shelby Township. I'm going to just click on the Shelby Township map, and I have literally created my graph by 2 clicks. But let me show you how this can show that you have done your true due diligence. 2 screens open. Of course, it opened on this one. You can actually do your due diligence, and you can literally show exactly what is going on in that particular market. So let me just blow this up so you can kind of see it a little bit better. Sometimes it's a little easier when it's blown up. Here at the top is single family. Down here is the condo metrics. But if you look right here, we can see that right now in Shelby Township, versus February of 24. And by the way, it's always one rolling month behind because it has to gather the stats for that month. So the 14th of every month it comes out, but it's always going to be 1 month behind because it has to gather all the information for that previous month. But here's what's really interesting. If we look at the Shelby Township numbers, we can see we're 14.3% down in inventory. Not crazy, right? But if you consider that last year there wasn't very much to sell, and now we have even less this year, let's take a look at those numbers. Inventory on the market last year in February of 2024 was 105 listings. This year, only 90. Again, that's where we get our 14% drop. What is that doing to our average sales price? Well, generally we're seeing supply and demand, but if you look, we're actually seeing that it dropped a little bit. So it went from our average sales price of $459 to $422. Looks like it is our close days are taking less time to close these properties up. Looks like even less time before they go pending. So they're selling faster, but we're not seeing those through the roof prices that we did before. So every city has a different story. And that's what's really very interesting about this. Is if you click on the next city over, it's a totally different story that you're telling. So let's actually take another one. Let's take Sterling Heights. So I click on Sterling Heights because that's actually where this property was. Again, creating that same graph. This one only 10% down though. We had 99 homes on the market last year, only 89. That math makes sense to me, right? 10% down. From here, our median sales price went down about 10,000 on the average sale. And our average sales price, again, we're seeing a little bit of a decrease, a 4.5% decrease. So this is a way you can be an expert, even if you're new to the business. You can easily disseminate these numbers. You can easily see them. And I think you can see it was very easy to create this graph. Condos, again, right down here. Now, condos tell a little bit different story, right? Actually, I happen to know they built some new condos in Sterling Heights. But again, now we have an opposite story. We've got a 16% increase in our condos, again, knowing that new condo complex went into there. But we're seeing the average sales price trend upward. Probably because those are newer construction condos and they're a little nicer. They are costing a little bit more, and it's bringing our price. So we're able to actually see numbers in real time and explain it to our sellers to educate why maybe we don't want to overprice our listing, or maybe why in this market, if you are seeing a massive decrease in that city of inventory and massive sale, maybe you want to do put them on the higher end of your pricing range. So this is a great way to share that with them. So I like how easy it is, but I also print this as a PDF and I pull that into my list, into my CMA for my listing appointment. So very easy. Again, you're going to find that under Paragon, under resources, and you're going to find it right in the market stats program. Okay, so we're pulling our data. We've got how many bedrooms, we've got the square footage. Now, obviously, the key is let's get those comps. Let's find out what this home is actually going to close for. So when we're searching like that, we really don't want to use the quick search or the power search. We want to do a full-on traditional search. So I'm going to go to search in Paragon, and I'm simply going to find that type of class that if we're listing vacant land, we're obviously going to look for comparables for vacant land. But in this case, we're going to do a nice, easy one today. We're going to do a single family residential home. One thing is, if you're getting familiar with Paragon, because we did have some kind of new people on our class today, keep in mind, if you ever get stumped what a particular field is asking for, there is a magnifying glass right over here to the right. So if you're wondering what is type asking for, well, it's giving you the option. Are you looking for a condo? Are you looking for, I've never actually sold a farm, but there's farm and then residential. The next thing we want to do is we're trying to determine, obviously, what it's going to sell for. So I don't want any rentals in here. The other thing is, what status are you looking for? And obviously, the most important status is closed. So of course, I want to pick closed. And I certainly want to go back with what an appraiser is going to use, right? I want to know what it's going to appraise for. So I'm going to say I want to go back 6 months because that's what an appraiser is going to do. But I'm going to give you a little tip. Again, being a big Floyd Rickman fan, he always said, Colleen, if you're going to sit at somebody's table and you're going to tell them what their home is worth, do you think they don't know what Joe Schmagegi down the way is listed for? So I always like to include the actives as well. I always like to include the pendings because those pendings can change and they can also change our comps at any time. So I always like to include the actives and pendings. If this was a different market where, if you remember, if you were selling real estate in 2007 or 2008, when we had the market crash, we were trying to talk people into, hey, we got to be realistic about these numbers. You cannot overprice your house. I mean, we have got to have it at the right price. Those are great times to bring in expireds. So if we were looking at expireds, and back then we had like 6 years worth of inventory, a little different today. We got like 6 days worth of inventory at this point. So kind of different ends of the scale, right? But it was great at that time to pull in one overpriced expired that had been on the market, let's say for 300 days, and they had dropped their price 3 times, but the listing had gone stale. Those were also great examples to bring in a flip market when you're trying to get them to not overprice their house because there's so many homes on the market. That was a great tactic to get them to be more realistic, because they'd say, Colleen, I know you said it's worth 300, but I think we want to try it 400,000. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is never going to sell at 400,000, but can't really say that, right? That was when we'd pull out that super expired listing that says, you know what, I know you feel like that. And I just want to, and I understand your home is beautiful and I know why you feel like that, but Mr. Fumagalli over here, he thought that way too. And look, he's been on the market 412 days. He's now tried to reduce his price 3 times. Those were great tactics to get us in the right price, right? All right, so next we want to jump down here. We obviously want to put in the important pieces. School district, important. Structure style, Now, keep in mind, I'm giving you the basics here. I understand that if you are out in the rural farmland where it's the only house in 5 miles, this is probably not going to apply to you. You're going to have to open up your parameter a little bit. But in this case, if I am looking, if I'm listing this particular house that we looked at, it's a 1-story brick ranch. So I want to try whenever possible to find the comparables that are going to be equal. And we'll do a great job, especially in this area, because there's a lot of brick ranches in this neighborhood. So we're going to now put in our bedrooms. We could see that it had 3 bedrooms. This is where your homework pays off, right? It had a bath and a half. So we're going to do, I'll probably do 1 to 3. I'll probably dwindle that down. By the way, there is fields that you can find down below for 1 full bath or 1 half bath if you want to be dead on exact. The only thing about being too exact, especially in this market, is you may not find enough comparables to make it worth your while. So keep in mind, you don't want to put in so much criteria or be so exact that you can't find what you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, they have a basement. We could clearly see it did have an attached garage. Now, if you're coming up with too many comps, then yes, use a cat's garage. Um, I would caution you about using features, especially in this market, because we just don't have enough inventory. So if your house has a fireplace, let's say, and you select features, I want houses with fireplaces, and let's say the lazy agent who put their listing in just did the required and never filled that out, you might lose a valuable comp. So I would not recommend using features for most of these. I mean, if there's one feature that really stands out, or you're getting so many comps that you do need to narrow them down, then that's a little different story. But in this market, trust me, you need every comp you can get. So we're going to now scroll down. By the way, if you are looking, if you do get a ton of features or a ton of properties back in your results, you could always go to features and do must have attached garage or must have finished basement or something like that. But again, in this market, I would really not recommend it. Okay, so square footage, let's talk about that next. What do you use for square footage? When I was new, I remember going, well, do you compare a 1,000 square foot brick ranch to a 5,000 square foot colonial? Where is the stop off point? What do appraisers use? Here is your answer. Appraisers, again, this is 99% of the time. Again, out in those rural areas or sometimes waterfront is a whole different animal, but 99% of the time, square footage is based on the 20% rule. And that means, especially in this area where there's a lot of cookie cutter houses, meaning a lot of the same style houses all in this neighborhood, this house we saw was 1,361 square feet. So if you don't know how to do that, if you are, again, we've got some new people on the call. So you would take 1,361, as you're seeing here, and you would simply multiply that by 20%. So we see it's about 272. So we're going to simply take that 272 and we're going to add our 1,361 to it. Okay, so that's really the top end. So I'd probably even shrink that to maybe 1,630 would be the top end of our square footage. You're going to do the same thing in reverse on the bottom. You're going to take that 1,361, you're going to minus that 272, that 20%, and that's going to give you your bottom number. Since I'm not going to go through that whole exercise, I'm just going to guess. All right, so we've got our 1050 to our 1630. We've got our 20% square footage rule. So please don't try to say, you know, this is a 5,000 square foot colonial and I'm going to compare it to it, because no appraiser is going to do that. And you're going to clearly steer that seller wrong on what the price should be. Because remember, price per square foot is really kind of what we're looking at here. All right, so let's go to, now you're probably thinking, lady with the fuzzy hair, you have 8,497 comps. You're going to be there for the rest of your life doing your CMA. Well, we didn't put in the obvious and most important location. So let's jump into our map and let's talk about how we're actually going to get those comps to the right number. The right number, by the way, is you're really looking between 3 and 5 closed comps. Of course, you will have more properties because we've also included actives and pendings. But let's take a look. So let's say that we are in fact going to be listing that house that I showed you at 41539 Wessel. Let me show you what an appraiser is going to do, because that's what we're going to do too. By the way, this uses Google Maps, so please remember less is best. You don't want to put in the drives, the ways, the courts, the avenues, skip all of that. You want to simply put in the route street address, 41539 Wessel. This happens to be Wessel Drive. Leave off the drive, comma, the city, because this is, remember, if you don't put in the city, you're going to end up, in this case, I think we ended up in Missouri. So you don't want to do that. It's a nationwide program. So you want to make sure you're putting in the route street address, comma, the city. First step, you want to click the magnifying glass, relocate your map. It just found it. This is our subject property sitting right here. Well, we want to do what an appraiser is going to do. In this area, an appraiser is going to use the 1 mile radius, and that's what we want to do too. So we're going to click 1 mile radius. And what we've just done is we've done exactly what an appraiser was going to do. And look at, you can see there's not a ton of comps in there. We do have enough, so that's good. By the way, if you're looking at these clusters, they're just where the flags are kind of close together. If I zoom in, you'll see that it does break those clusters apart into individual flags. But here's a little tip. If you want to know what's in that cluster, simply click on it. Over here to the left, it's going to show you those two. Generally, it's where the flags are kind of right on top of each other. And you know how frustrating it is when you're trying to get to the back one. And, so that's why they do that. All right, so we've got some comps. I can see that. But let's talk about some real life examples, because let's face it, every deal in real estate is different. Let's say that you're listing a house and it's 2 hours away and you kind of want to see the neighborhood before you show up for your listing appointment. Is it an appreciating neighborhood? Is it a depreciating neighborhood? Here's another quick tip. You can actually grab this little yellow Google man over here and you can place him in front of your listing. It will even, by the way, tell you, where you're setting. So if you want to move him over here, it'll tell you exactly where you're about to set him in front of. So let's say you wanted to see the neighborhood. I want to walk down, check out some of these. You can see that clearly there are a lot of brick cookie cutter ranches. Some of them have 2-car garages. It looks like they're pretty much all attached. But as you can see, you can kind of walk down the road. Now, I like this because it also shows you, it will pin your actual property. So you can actually see, oh yeah, that's the property that I'm going to be listing. So you can literally walk down the street. You can see the neighbor to the left, neighbor to the right. But you can do this. And by the way, if you're using the all new Collaboration Center, which is Paragon, but it's the piece you give your client, the new app, they can do this too. They can actually check out properties even before you drive them around to view them. Okay, so we kind of checked out the neighborhood. A couple of other things I wanted to point out. Let's pretend for just a moment that you're getting ready to go and list a waterfront home. Now, waterfront certainly is a whole different animal. And when it comes to waterfront, a lot of times if I'm listing a little brick ranch off the water, and we're going to just pretend for a moment that these 3 properties are on the water, that is certainly going to screw up my CMA. So let's pretend for a moment Violet, because she was so nice and let us know that she could hear us. Let's pretend for a moment Violet is having an awesome month. She just listed these 3 $1 million waterfront properties. So congratulations, Violet. But what we want to do now is, although we're excited for Violet, we're listing this little brick ranch, 15 streets off the water, and that's really going to mess us up. So how do we basically omit from our 1 mile radius? How do we omit that waterfront area? And trust me, sooner or later, you're going to want to know how to do this. You can also do this for buyers. If they love this, let's say a whole city, but there's this one area of the city they don't really care for, you can even draw a big area and then omit this little area. So let's take a look. If we want to do that, we're going to click draw. My personal preference is use the polygon. It's a little easier. And literally you can draw a shape on your shape in your map. So I'm just going to draw a shape. And you're probably thinking, lady with the fuzzy hair, the numbers are still there. Well, there's one more step. You're going to click edit. And you're simply going to change it from includes to excludes. So although we're super excited about Violet and her $1 million waterfront listings, we don't want them screwing up our CMA. So we're going to omit that waterfront area. A lot of times, especially if it's a sub where it's half new construction and then half 1930 style brick ranches, those numbers are going to be radically different. And a lot of times I will just literally do the aerial map and draw it where that line is so that I'm not getting in. You could do it by year built too. So several different ways you can accomplish the same thing. A lot of times I just like to do it that way. So I'm making sure I get all of the new construction area versus maybe those older style homes. Okay. All right, so we have picked the area now, so that's going to start dwindling down our comps. Remember, if you're still getting too many comps or not enough comps, you can always jump back to criteria. So think of these 3 tabs as they're always open. If I go back to criteria, I can see I'm probably in the right realm. I got 12, but remember, we added actives, pendings, and those closed. Of course, adding things like school district, that's going to be important. But really by honing into that 1 mile radius, a lot of times we're doing that already. So just kind of a point there. All right, so we have our 12 properties now. Let's take a look. Now, if you are like me, I'm going to be honest, I hate the way that this drops these in here because I have a little OCD and I like things very organized. So when I look at this and it's closed and pending and active and they're all mixed up together, I don't really love that. So the first thing I like to do is I like to go to the top of the column heading and I like to sort. Because I want to make sure that I include all the actives because trust me, they know every active in that sub and they're going to expect that you do as well. I also want to include the pendings because these we know are pending and I want to also have those. And a lot of times you can see this is more of a new construction, or I think it's more of a new construction home, may even be larger, I'm not sure. But I like to have it in there because they're going to probably ask you, well, why didn't you show me that particular home? And I want to be able to say, well, that's because that one had 2 stories, or that's because that one had. So I like to include the actives. I like to include the pending. And then, of course, up here at the top, it's kind of giving you a mini breakdown, but I can see that our average sold was about 268. I would recommend going through these properties. Again, we're looking for 3 to 5 is really our target range. I am aware that sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you get 2 and you're thrilled you got 2 in this market. Or sometimes, especially if you're doing a very unique house or again, rural, sometimes it's a little bit harder to find. But for the sake of our example here, I am going to go grab 5 just to kind of get us to the next point. I also don't like the way that looks because my OCD goes, well, you got a bunch of jibber jabber on there that you really don't want. So how do you fix that? If you go right up to this checked box, and you click on that, now I'm only seeing the ones I'm actually working with, which is what my preference. You can also add custom fields in here. I like to personally see the great, I've been so blessed in my 25 years of being an agent. I have gotten to work with some great people like Ed Martin and Flo Apke and so many great agents. Very few times do I have bad experiences with agents, but every once in a while it does happen. So if I'm going to show these 10 properties, I might want to put the great agent experiences at the top of the list. Not that I wouldn't show the bad agents. I'm aware that would be wrong, but I might put them down at the bottom of the list, if you know what I mean. So I like right on my view here, I like to actually have the agent name. You can add whatever fields you want on your search results. Or, another pet peeve I have is if I always have to scroll all the way over to see something, I hate that. Like the closing date. Keep in mind, you can drag it into a different position and it will save it in your preferences. Or if there's a field not there, you can go to customize and add it, like the agent name here. I love that. I like that on all my search results. I like to see who I'm going to be working with. I've been, again, blessed to work with a lot of great listing agents. I like to see that right here in my list. Okay. So I've got my comps. The next thing I want to do is I want to push them over to create a wowing CMA. And so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go over to options. And there's a couple different options. The option you're looking for is the second cloud CMA. There's a great buyer tour if you're showing buyer properties, but in this case, we're looking to make a CMA. Now, before I go too far into the rabbit hole, let me just say there is a whole class on Cloud CMA. So I'm going to skim this at a really, really fast clip, okay? So bear with me. There is an entire class on creating an awesome CMA in Cloud. But what I did want to show you was that easy button that we just clicked brought in all of those properties. All I have to do is give my report a title, and really probably I would call this Sally Seller, and give it an address so it can pull the information for your subject listing from the tax records. I'm going to do that. Here's where I'd go in and add my wowing cover. So remember how I said, grab that front photo when you're in the BS&A record. I'm going to kind of crop this too a little bit. Actually, change that. Grab the one we grabbed today. I think it was this one. Yeah, that was this one. Okay, so let me grab this. Again, I don't like the way the car is in there, so maybe take a little bit of that out, take a little bit of that front sidewalk out, and I'm going to crop that and use that as my cover photo, just because I don't want that ugly Google overhead shot. If you've taken a nice photo, that's a great place to use that too. And literally, you're going to hit fetch listings, and it's going to create a CMA for you. Now, I'm not going to go too far again into cloud, but I do want to show you what the end result looks like. And because I think it is very wowing, and it takes mere seconds to do. Let me show you one we just closed over here. Let's use this one. It takes mere seconds to do that. And I think the result looks really good. And it's easy to explain. The way Cloud sets it up, it's a very easy to explain report. And on top of that, they also have a new interactive that we show you in the Cloud CMA class too. So let me just show you what it's going to look like all said and done. Okay, so here is my Cloud report. On average, it takes me about 7 minutes to create what you're looking at. Just going to blow it up so you can see it a little bit easier here. It will pull your contact information at the bottom. This, in fact, was a picture that I grabbed from the BS&A. My second page is all about my company. It literally took me 15 seconds to add that to my template. And the nice thing about Cloud is you basically set up a template one time and it does everything else for you going forward. So basically, I went to my company website, I copied it, put it into my template in Cloud, done. You can have a marketing page. You can even do a marketing video or video resume that you can go over with your seller, or if you're sending it to your seller, it always makes a really nice presentation. Here's that real list record. Remember how I said I want to be able to show and verify where I got all the information, where I came up with their lot lines, their square footage. Here is that BS&A record that we looked at earlier. Again, bringing in my market stats. As you can see here, I wanted to educate them on what was going on in their marketplace. But I also love the way that it shows the comps. Not only does it pull all the information over from the MLS, but I love that it allows you, wow, that is kind of like a shocking blue. It does allow you to bring in the interior photos as well. So if your seller says, yeah, but Joe Fumagalli, did he have a finished basement? Wow, that's an equally shocking color in that basement. Okay, so yes, they had a finished basement. It was a very bright basement. You won't be able to miss it, but you can at least go through those photos with that homeowner. So if they do ask those questions, you've got all of the detail, not just the little snapshot that you get in most CRM programs. I've used 7 CRM programs now. I've used Toolkit, I've used Edge, I've used so many of them, and none of them I thought were as easy to use. And none of them I thought looked as nice for the seller. A lot of times there were hard times with the photos, and it wasn't worth it. Even, I have to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the Paragon CMA. I think it's cumbersome and bulky. I do love Cloud. I think Cloud is easy, and it's easy for the seller to digest. I like a lot of the marketing pieces that, like you're looking at here, properties. When I listed her home, we're selling at 105% of their list price. So clearly over their list price. 13 days was the average time to pen. And you can even put in your own, if you have, let's say the house needs a lot of work. So yeah, I'm showing them the comps, but my suggested list price is different. Maybe the comp stage should be 344, but my suggested list price is 339 because I know it needs like 10 grand worth of updating. This is where you can also add that in. Price per square foot, that's our magic number. That's generally what we're looking for. What is that house going to sell for? If we look at it price per square foot, it also breaks that down for you. And then, of course, adding those great marketing pages. Actually, I just updated this. I should have used the updated one. I forgot. But I like to handle objections when we're doing our CMA. One of the things they're going to ask you is my home going to be on Zillow? I don't care how you slice it, they're going to ask, am I going to be on realtor.com? How are you going to market my home? I don't even want them to ask me. I want them to put it, I want them to see it right in my CMA. I want it to be in my CMA for real life. It's page 5. I mean, it's always page 5 because I want to tell them what's my marketing plan. I have a really nice one that I just completed. It's got all the updated logos because some of these actually aren't even in existence anymore. But it's got all the updated logos, and most brokers do now syndicate to over 400 different real estate sites. If you'd like a copy of this, I will be happy to get it to you. Again, the new one looks a lot nicer, and again, it's a little bit more updated with some updated language. But you can always reach out to us and let us know you'd like a copy of this, and we'll definitely make that happen for you. But these are all great pieces that you can add in. I have a whole marketing plan too. Cloud CMA has one that you can edit as well. But these are all those pieces that are certainly going to set you apart from your competition. One last thing I want to show you while we are on Cloud CMA. Cloud CMA, we again teach this in the Cloud CMA class. They just released a new interactive version, and I have to tell you, I am in love with what it does because it's what we've needed to be able to do for years, but never could. Good example is if, I'll tell you a true story, another true story, only in real estate. Walked in, I drove by the listing, absolutely adorable. Every tulip planted in a nice straight row, shutters all painted, everything matched. It was absolutely beautiful. I kid you not, I showed up for the listing appointment. So I did my CMA. And by the way, I one-stepped it. A lot of people will say, you know, they only two-step listing appointments. Some people say they only one-step listing appointment. I had one-stepped it, I admit it. Took my shoes off as I generally do, stepped into the door. And I swear, I am not exaggerating when I say it was 3-inch shag blue, and I mean Grover blue carpeting, and every wall had those 70 stick-on wallflowers. And I know they say it's coming back, but I guarantee you it ain't ever coming this far back. So when I stepped into that home, I knew some serious updating was going to be needed because it was like, I felt like I was in the Brady Bunch house. I mean, it was crazy. So for me, I was literally in, and this was back when we still printed our CMAs. I was literally in the bathroom trying to rip the page out of my nicely bound CMA that had my suggested listing price, if you know what I mean, because I was clearly off. So long story short, this, you can actually be presenting your CMA and make that type of change on the fly with one click. So it also allows you to pull in properties that you may have not pulled in for a very good reason. So let me show you what I mean. This is the new interactive Cloud CMA. And I'm just going to quickly touch on the two pieces that I really like. You can go into the live app for comparables. So if they say, well, you know, what about that house on Bernard? I heard they got more. A lot of times you might not have chose that particular house because maybe that particular house was a 2-story and you're listing a brick ranch, or maybe it was 5,000 square feet and you're 1,000. There's probably a really good reason you didn't pick it as a comp. But they want to know why, and you can't memorize every single house, and you don't want to have to keep opening different apps up on your phone to try to figure it out, right? So you can actually click into the MLS history, and you can say, well, actually, I didn't choose that particular house for, it didn't have an attached garage. That's why it sold for less than your house would be worth. Or if it closed yesterday and you did your CMA 2 days ago for them, you could actually include it on the fly if you wanted. So you literally could compare that immediately to their house. It will also highlight things like if it had another bathroom or a larger garage or didn't have a garage. I mean, you can do all of that actually on the fly. So I just love the new interactive version. All right, so quickly going to jump into, you've presented your CMA, you've done a great job. Lastly, you need them to sign something so you get the listing. So where do you do that? And that is in Transaction Desk. So Transaction Desk, now let me just put another caveat in here. If you're coming in from one of our vendor MLSs, specifically if you are coming in from Claire Gladwin Board of Realtors or the Upper Peninsula Board of Realtors, or if you are coming in from the Northern Great Lakes Realtors, those three have different form providers. 2 of them use ZipForm, 1 of them uses .loop. So keep in mind, if you're coming in from one of those three, you may not have Transaction Desk. I just want to throw that out there. However, I love Transaction Desk because it's so easy to create listings from the tax records. So let me show you very quickly. If you have Transaction Desk, you will see it under your resources in Paragon. It will be over with the online forms. By the way, if you're with Claire Gladwin or the Upper Peninsula Association, that's also where you can log into ZipForm. But I'm going to go ahead and click on Transaction Desk. And I just want to show you very quickly two things that you can do in Transaction Desk. Again, a whole class on creating listing paperwork in Transaction Desk. There's a whole entire class. We're just going to skim it very quickly. But when you are ready to start creating a new listing, you're simply going to go to the left-hand side of Transaction Desk, click on that home icon, and we're going to click Add. We're going to create a brand new, but we don't want to fill all that stuff out, right? We want to pull everything from the tax records. So I'm going to say I want to create a listing at 123 Main Street. I want to apply all of my listing forms, so my entire company listing package, which you can apply right from your template. But there's one more key step. As soon as I applied my listing package, it knows automatically I am the listing agent. But in this case, I want to pull from the tax records. So I'm not going to pull from the MLS because how do I know the last agent put all that stuff in correctly? Don't want to do that. I actually want to pull right from the tax records. So I'm going to click on Real List. But there's one more little trick here that I want to show you. When Brian was setting this up, we were all excited because we were going to be able to do a one-click transaction, which is awesome. But then he said, all you got to do is type in the tax ID. Now, Brian, and you can clearly tell, has never sold a house in his life because nobody memorizes tax IDs, okay? So we had to explain to our chief technical officer, who is obviously the tech person, we don't memorize that. So we need an address here. So here's your next tip. Go right over here to the magnifying glass, and you only want to enter the three very distinct things. And let me explain why. If you fill out all the stuff it's asking you for, you're going to get an error. I can almost guarantee it because tax records are very exact. So if you type in drive, D-R-I-V-E, and the tax record has it DR period, guess what? You're not getting it. So here's what you want to do. You simply want to type in the, you want to use the drop down actually to find the county. That's the first thing you need. The second thing is you need the exact street number, just the number, and then the route street name. Leave off the drives, the ways, the circles, the places. Don't add those. Just the route street name. Again, think of it like Google. Less is best here. So I want to put in my Wessel, and I simply want to search the tax database. So again, the route street name and the county. Now I immediately find it, as you can see. I'm going to check it off, and I am going to use that to create my entire transaction. So I'm basically pulling all the information right from the record, the public tax record. Now you can see it's already auto-populating the legal description, the tax number, the township, the subdivision, all of that is auto-flowing. It will even take it as far as pulling in the seller's name. So it's going to know where to put my seller underneath the signature lines. It's going to know to put Anthony Wiegand here underneath the line. And it will even move your signing blocks if you decide to use the Authentisign, the e-signing. It'll know exactly where the seller is supposed to sign. So I absolutely love that. One last thing I want to show you here before I kick it over to Taylor. We have designed an interactive data sheet. And you're probably thinking, well, how does that make sense, Colleen? Well, let me kind of give you the actual real estate workflow. You've just presented your great CMA. We're now getting all our paperwork ready for them to sign because, of course, you're going to get the listing. But how do we prepare so that once we get the listing, we don't have to fill a bunch of information out? So what I mean is, instead of me filling out all of my listing paperwork and then having to go back into Paragon and entering all of that same information to create my listing, what if I told you you could actually fill it out one time, push a button, and it would actually create your listing for you in Paragon? Sounds good, doesn't it? Now, I am aware that there are some offices that the admin actually has to go in and create the listing or has to at least check it before it goes into the MLS Live. So what this does is it allows you to send all the information into Paragon as a partial, kind of like a pre-listing, if you will. Your admin has access to that. She can then go in, add your photos. She could add your disclosures. She could review it to make sure you're not going to get any fines in your comments, right? And she can save it, and that listing will become live. So let me show you just kind of very briefly how that works. You're filling out all of the red. I'm not going to bore you with actually doing that today, so you're going to have to kind of just sort of go on the tour with me here. But I'm going to fill in all of the red, which is required. I'm then going to hit this upload my listing button. What that's actually doing is creating a new partial listing for you right in the MLS that you can either go in and save to create the listing and make it live, or your admin can. So you'll find partial listings in Paragon under the listing section, and you will find partials. When you click on partials, you'll be able to see any of your partials, but you'll also be able to, your admin will be able to go in and see all of your partials as well. So let's say your admin is in charge of adding your photos or adding your disclosures. They can go in, they can see all of that data. Once they hit save, that listing is now going to be live in the MLS. So it's a way that you can push all that information over. Now, I'm going to be totally honest. I do all of my listings that way because I absolutely hate going in and opening up all of those fields in Paragon. I think the actual data sheet is a much easier way to do that. If you go into each section, and by the way, these sections, because they're short on space, you have to go into each one of these, and it just takes a lot longer, and the names aren't really like, what is a ZL source of square footage, right? It just doesn't make sense. It's way easier to do that data sheet where all of these fields are properly labeled because they have a lot more space. And I also love the way you can copy and paste room measurements in here, especially, by the way, if you're using the new Club Casa, you can literally copy and paste from the app into Paragon. I love that. Down here, I can see all the features. I can check them off very quickly and easily without opening and expanding all those boxes. And it tells me what those ZL features actually mean. So I like this way better. I think it's way more user-friendly. Last thing is, once you go into your partial listing, all you want to remember to do is go in and add those disclosures. And you can do that very simply, much simpler than in a lot of other programs like Remind pops in my head. It's a little bit more cumbersome to access disclosures. Here, you simply just find where you've stored them on your computer. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to say that this is my disclosure. I can say that this is going to be made public because I want them to be able to see it in my Collab Center, and I can hit save. So very, very easy to add those additional pieces. All right, so I've taken you on the tour, but now I get to turn it over to the expert in marketing your listing. Congratulations, we're just gonna pretend that you all just got your listing at your listing appointment. I'm gonna turn it over to Taylor now, who's gonna show you all the ins and outs about advertising your listing, taking great photos. She teaches an awesome photo class if you have not taken that with her yet. And I am gonna bump you up to presenter now, if that's okay, Taylor.
Yep, thank you. Great job.
Thank
that was a
you.
lot of tools you showed today.
I did. I sort of bounced them all over.
Yep. So I just wanted to let everybody know that make sure I got the Paragon open up. Are you seeing Paragon right now?
I see it.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to let everybody know that the products that Colleen covered, I actually added the direct link to register for them in the chat as well. So if you want to go deeper into Cloud CMA, there's a class coming up for that Colleen teaches, and then as well as Transaction Desk. So those two last products that she showed you. The webinar links are right in there for you. So to piggyback off what Colleen covered, she went from, let's say, A to P here at this point. And so she pushed that listing data sheet over into Paragon. So the way that works is it actually will bring it up as a partial listing, which is a draft. And you can go in and you can tweak that. And we're going to go in and, you know, dive into all those features that are available before making your listing live. I like to really stress the partial function for a lot of different reasonings. For one, this allows you to perfect the listing before it goes out. Takes the time for you to, you know, kind of come back, fresh eyes, look at all of that. But also a lot of times people get, you know, trigger happy and they want to just get it out, make their client happy because now it's live and they only got one photo, or they didn't really take the time to market the listing. And even though it's getting out quick, they didn't do everything that they can do to really boost this listing up. And this is really important because when you make the listing live, it is seen in the feeds as a new listing one time. Any changes made down the road, it is read in the feed as a media file update. So why is that important? Well, if you look at our data sharing map here, this is who we data share with. We data share with 98% of the state. So all of that is going right into the MLS system, and all of these data shares, other MLSs, all listed here in the state, are getting that data feed as a new listing. So it's pulled very, very quickly. Now, if you go in and you add photos later, remaining photos later, or take the time to add some links to promote the property and extra captions and descriptions, it's seen as a media file update, which can take about 24 hours to go out to all these channels. So channels meaning data sharing, which you're seeing here, syndication, which Colleen touched on with the Cloud CMA report, where your clients want to know where all the listings are, where all the places that their listing is going to be going, as well as IDX, which is other agents' websites where people are able to see the properties and do some searches themselves. So to do the listing justice, you want to make sure that that listing is set as a partial before pushing it live, and you have all the things that I'm going to be showing you next before making that live. Another thing that I would like to touch on is assume identity. So we have a feature called assume identity. Now let's pretend that Colleen went through all this as the agent and she started the process that you just saw. She went into the tax records, she went in and did her comps, she went in and started the listing data sheet and filling everything out, and now she pushed it to a partial and it's hanging out there under her account as a partial. If I was her admin or her assistant, I can go in and actually assume her identity. We can grant access so that you could do this. And me going in is really simple if I have access to do that, where I can now go in, and if I have access to her, it'll show up, but I'm a staff member at My Real Source, so I can see everybody if I need to. But for example, Colleen would be right there for me to select as the admin and go into her listings, and I can maintain her partial for her, meaning I can add any remaining information that she sent over to me. I can add photos, I can add descriptions, I can add the marketing links. A lot of times assistants and admins assist with this kind of stuff. So just know that there's that flexibility to work with somebody on your listing, and another reason why the partial is so important to use. So for example of this class, Colleen's the agent. I'm going in as her admin to help maintain the rest of the listing before she decides to push it live. Now, going into the listing that's hanging out there as a partial, you're going to click on the listings icon right here and hit partials. It'll go into my listings or another agent's listings. If I'm the admin, I can go in and I can open up the whole listing ticket right here. Now you'll see off to the side, this is where all the sections are that you can then finalize the rest of the listing before it goes out to the MLS system, which is going to then trigger a new listing in Collaboration Center and auto emails. It's also going to do that for anybody that we data share that this criteria meets, syndication, and IDX, as I mentioned. So what's nice about the listing entry piece is a lot of those fields that Colleen would start in a listing data sheet are going to be hanging out in here already. That's where it saves that time where you're not having to re-key information in, but there are going to be some remaining things that you'll need to go through. You can tab through, which is really nice. I've seen some systems where they're jumping around over here and over here and over here, and you got to actually use your mouse to click around. I really like that I can just tab through each field as I go. And it also breaks it up into containers for me. So I can then go in here so it doesn't seem so overwhelming, minimize those containers. And one container I would like to highlight, given what I cover in this class, is virtual tours and video tours. So we have a whole spot right in here with actually 4 placeholders for URLs that you can have a branded video and an unbranded video, branded tours and unbranded tours. So it's not just a single placeholder. And what are these 4 different fields do and how do they work together? Well, a virtual tour and a video tour is if you do, I'll show you the example ones that Colleen has done just from her phone that we recommend that's maybe a good thing to do without spending a lot of money. A lot of agents also hire third-party photography, videographers to do some beautiful tours and interactive kind of presentation links that they can then put on their listing. So the virtual tour ones are going to be anything that does not have a brokerage name, agent name. It's just going to go out to the MLS and collaboration centers as well as IDX, because those are going to go out on agents' websites. So it's kind of a universal video for anybody to watch. The branded is a way for you to then ask that videographer, or if you make your own, to say your name, say your brokerage, a little something about you if you wanted to. A lot of these companies, if you say I need a branded and an unbranded, it's not a big deal. They'll put the logo, they'll put your name, they'll put contact information if you want them to do that. And with that, you can put that URL in the branded, and the MLS system knows to pull based on the fields where it should go. So the unbranded would, like I said, would go to all those other channels in the MLS and then IDX. The branded would go to advertising places such as any syndication portals like the Zillows and the Realtor.coms, and then the single property website that we offer. So I will be showing you that in a minute, but it will be a special placeholder for that URL. And it will have your branding and all your information on there. So let me just show you real quick an example of just a homemade branded tour that Colleen did. She's also works with, aerial videographers and interactive tours and things like that, of course, but you can do these right on your phone and splice it all together, upload that video to your own YouTube channel. A lot of agents have their own YouTube channels where they put their tours and walkthroughs and promotional content on their own YouTube channel. So the branded version is going to go right into this. That URL is going to go right into here.
Hello everyone, Colleen DeLang with Keller Williams Lakeside. Want to take you on a property tour of a new listing at 50839 Marshall Lane in beautiful downtown New Baltimore. Actually, we're just steps away from beautiful Lake St. Clair as well. So let me take you on a tour. Stepping inside here, we have an entrance to the 1.5 car garage. We walk right into the living room. Does have a gas fireplace. And then just off to the left, we have a full first floor bathroom. And then just over here, we have a dining room just off the kitchen. announcements.
So this at the beginning, she mentioned her name and her brokerage. And then she also has a version as well that it's just a tour and she doesn't say anything. She just says the address, come check it out. And it's the same tour. She just had a different intro. So one is branded, one is unbranded, so that if you put it in the right placeholder, it can go out to the right channels for you. And that's really easy to find right here down in the virtual tours and video tours container. Go ahead, paste those in. You can always step away if you need to and hit save as a partial and come back. Need to go take a break. You worked on it late at night and you want to come back and do the rest later in the morning. Go ahead and do that. You can hit save as a partial. Now, after you fill out all your listing data fields and walk through, get your marketing videos in there, you can go to add and edit pictures. So from here, you can upload, in the top right corner it says upload multiple photos. You can upload 99 photos all at one time. It will load here in this little rectangle. It loads very quickly. I actually just had to create this new sample listing for class because it expired as a partial that I use as a demonstration for today's class as well as my photography classes. And it loads really quickly. These are all very high resolution photos, about 3000 ppi, which is really high resolution. Sizes it. We have the highest resolution right now in MLS systems without it being so not a lot of lag and loading in the browsers. So it's actually 3072 by 2300, which is going to give really sharp, crisp photos, not a lot of heavy borders going on. Send that over there. So when your listings are out there, you have a big blown up photo. You don't have some little dinky thumbnail that's getting syndicated out. What's also nice is it automatically compresses it for you too. And then there is a minimum. So it will tell you if your photo quality is too poor for the MLS system as well. Now, once your photos have been uploaded, let's say you take 100 pictures on your photo shoot and you're going to use maybe about 40 to 50 depending on the size of the home. I recommend quality over quantity, but you do want to have a couple different angles of the main spaces, sometimes even the bedrooms. And when you have a couple different angles of, maybe a 3-bedroom home or more, plus it has a nice backyard that's worth a few photos, a community, stuff like that. Of course, you're going to want to add those photos. People do gravitate towards the number of photos that they're seeing when it comes through as a new listing alert, but they're also going to gravitate to a photo that has a lot of contrast. So you want to have that thumbnail photo be a picture of the full house with some sky and some yard, good lighting, lots of contrast. So which is blue sky, green grass, not a lot of harsh shadows or anything like that. So I cover how to do all of that in the photography class. But you'll want to have maybe one primary photo only. Now, if the house has something that's really attention grabbing about the property, like it's on a lot of land, maybe has a barn, a lakefront, has an amazing, backyard or something, pool that you just want to get their attention right off the bat, then by all means add at least one more at the front to get their attention and intrigue them. But you don't want to have 5 photos of the front before you even get into the meat and potatoes of the house. So you want to really kind of tell that story, make it a cohesive flow through the home. And how you do that at a snapshot is really simply dragging and dropping. So it might not upload in the perfect order because you took maybe 100 photos, you're going to use 40 of them, and it's going to upload them by the ID on the digital file. So if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or something like that, then it's going to put them in that order and you're going to be jumping around when it uploads. So you'll want to drag and drop into the order that you desire. Once it is uploaded, you can always edit the image by clicking this little red pen. The red pen will allow you to crop and rotate. So a lot of agents will take photos with their smartphone. And when you take photos with your smartphone, you turn it around, sometimes the orientation, especially if you shoot horizontal for anything, can come in upside down. How annoying is it that you'd have to go into something separate to change that orientation when you've added the photos to your computer to then input into Paragon? Don't worry about that. You can go in, you can change the orientation because you maybe didn't catch it on your photos because the phones are smart enough to change the orientation when you're looking at it. So go ahead, crop, rotate, whatever you need to do. And then a really important thing that a lot of times agents are rushed, they want to get the listing out. They just do one photo and then they come back later and add the remaining photos. Not recommended. Go in and really take the time to have all the photos, all the flow makes sense, and then also add your captions and your descriptions. So the label or caption, I call it a caption, but it's titled label, has 25 characters. Now the description is your opportunity to write up to 255 characters on each photo. So even if you just put one sentence about something that you're pointing out in the photo, highlighting, this is your opportunity to really advertise the property. We have our remarks. We also have all the fields in the listing ticket, but what's the first thing people click on? The photo. So you want them, they want to browse through the photos quick, catch their attention, and then they're going to really dive in a little bit deeper. And your photos are your opportunity to how you would talk if you were touring this home. Check out this circular driveway, really nice. Or if you are doing an open house, highlighting some features at the open house. So just keep that in mind. Think about the descriptions in that way. So for me, it was a stunning 2-story home in ABC community with a 3-car garage and a circular driveway, which is always a really nice thing, great for entertaining. I wish that I had a circular driveway. So just things like that that are a value to the home. After you add all your descriptions, I'll go through some sample descriptions to kind of give you a little inspiration, but the flow should really make sense in terms of coming home after a long day at work and how that experience is walking through the home of the main level, the secondary level, which would just, or the level or the space where all the bedrooms and bathrooms are, then the basement. Make your way outside, community, things like that. I also like to do a couple different angles from all the main rooms. And I also like to do a close-up photo of some feature in the room. So not every room, not every house is going to have something like that. But this gives the experience, makes the experience more dynamic, more memorable, allows you to highlight little features of the home that I'm sure your sellers love. So, but the one thing that is relatively new that we're really trying to encourage, we have a product called Cubicasa that is included in your My Real Source membership that you can sign up for under resources, download the app, and you can scan a floor plan, a basic floor plan up to 5,000 square feet. So ideally you want to have the floor plan follow the primary photo so that you get their attention with the primary photo and the contrast and everything. Then the floor plan so that you kind of have a complete view of the home, because I know when I was getting listing alerts coming through and looking for a home, I was getting so annoyed because the pictures were jumping all over and I was having a hard time understanding the placement of where things were in the house. Or a lot of times agents would put something that's really attention grabbing at the front. One time I had an updated kitchen for the basement sent over, and for a while looking at the listing, I thought that this kitchen seemed a little small, but it was cute. And then it went somewhere else, and then it went somewhere else, and then there was a totally different kitchen. And realized, because I didn't have a floor plan, because of the way the flow of the photos were, I realized that, oh, that was the basement's little kitchenette but not the main kitchen. So things like that, or the primary bedroom and the bedrooms are all lumped together, and it's just not the experience that you want to be marketing the listing. So going through and thinking about those things, highlighting some close-up photos is a really nice thing to do. So let's pull up this sample listing just so you can kind of see that experience. Now, high resolution photos, these were really high res. You can see there's not any harsh borders, really crisp, really sharp. It pulls up the captions and descriptions if you added them. If you don't add them, it's not going to be some, box that's in the way or anything like that that's distracting. But all these captions and descriptions get sent over to vendors that do pull it. They also show up on your single property website. So they're worth the time. They're not just only in the MLS system. They go out to all the collaboration centers and all the places that it's definitely worth your effort. So going in, we're going to do the primary photo. You notice there's a lot of contrast in this photo. Then you're going to want to have the floor plan follow that. And then for me, sometimes I recommend just kind of coming into the entrance of the home, especially if it's like a little 3-bedroom brick ranch. You're not going to have a big grand foyer, or you're not going to have a mudroom necessarily. But for this home, this had a beautiful, lots of bedrooms, great one for an example to use, a lot of fun to photograph, of course, too. But this beautiful mudroom that I'm really envious of. So I wanted to bring that to the forefront right away because I loved it. So not only just showing the mudroom and jumping into that, I used the captions to talk about an extremely useful mudroom with custom built-in benches and hangers for backpacks, purses, briefcases, and more. An office space for bills and receipts, allowing your kitchen counters to be free of clutter, as well as a large walk-in pantry and coat closet. So use the descriptions to sell these beautiful features of the home, but also kind of point out things that when they're browsing really quickly, they might overlook, and it's like, oh yeah, a nice big walk-in pantry right there would be nice. A couple different angles I chose to do. Pointing out that this is attached to the garage, and then going into the kitchen from here. So there is some continuity because you saw little slivers. You'll notice that through my flow of photos is that I do a little sliver of the next room before I jump into it. So the ones that I choose, I make sure that there's a little bit of a sliver of that next room, so that not only having the floor plan, but doing that really completes the experience. So diving into the kitchen, I said, wouldn't you love to cook a delicious meal here? Beautiful, fully updated kitchen with tons of counter space and soft closed cabinets. Something to highlight. Now, when you saw the first view, you didn't really get to see all of the island. Over from this view, you didn't get to see the overhead vent and the backsplash or the double ovens. So highlighting these new stainless steel appliances with double ovens. Really important to have at least 2 different angles of those main rooms, the kitchens, the living rooms, the primary bedrooms, things like that. Then here's that close-up photo. This has something called shallow depth of field, and I teach that in the photography class. So what's worthy of doing something close up, highlighting those features in the photo and blurring out the background. And using that as a focal point to bring attention to the gas burners and to the backsplash. Another close-up, similar kind of thing here going on, highlighting this deep sink. And then this is a technique that I teach where you do shoot straight on. A lot of times we shoot at an angle to show the space, but sometimes there are some reasons to shoot straight on, making sure your lines are straight. There's techniques that photographers use, and breaks up the photos when you're constantly just shooting eye level and the same directions all the time, right towards a corner of the room. It's obviously a good rule of thumb, but there are some professional techniques that make a big difference. So I cover those in the photography class as well. But going through, completing this space, kind of backing up, highlighting the really cool ceiling that's going on here. And I also highlighted in the description that there's a little butler's quarter that connects to the dining room. From here, now highlighting the open concept, still you can see where everything is in relation. And then what I recommend is, get through here, but you'll see, so I'm gonna complete the first level of the home, and some close-up pictures, too, are sprinkled in throughout. But now I made my way upstairs. Don't move your way upstairs until you've completed the first level. Show that continuity, that everything kind of flows together, but also using your lines to kind of draw them to the next spaces that you're moving into as a technique. So this primary bedroom, once you've moved your way to the bedrooms, of course, start with the primary, cover all the aspects of the primary bedroom, and then you're going to want to do the bathroom that goes with each bedroom. So for this example, it has the primary bathroom. This was a really fun house to photograph because it had a lot of cool elements like this little changing room that was part of it. And then now the primary bathroom. Complete all that before moving on to the bedroom. And then the bathroom that goes with those bedrooms. I've seen a cluster of bedrooms before and then saving all the bathrooms for last. It just doesn't have the same impact. Complete the whole house, highlight those laundry rooms, bonus rooms, that kind of stuff a little bit later, and then make your way outside to the community, highlighting those kinds of features. If there's a community pool or a park, walkable to downtown, to the restaurants, that's the kind of stuff to kind of close with. And go from there. So do have upcoming photography classes where I go in and I teach you about the lighting, equipment, different techniques to really have the best photos for marketing. Always, hiring a professional photographer, always gonna, encourage that as well, but it is good to know how to market your listing and take your own photos as well. So now once you've added your photos, your tours, all your listing data fields, you can go in and this is where you can add your associated docs. And it just kind of walks you through right here, step by step. Now, before I push this live, I can go in and I can schedule my open houses. When you pick your open house dates and times and save it, there will be a little button on your single property websites, as well as on the listing tickets and collaboration center, and all of that will say open house where they can click on it and get the details. But if somebody just wanted to do a quick search of the open houses going on around their area, they can go under search, and then there's open house and tours. So you can go in, people can search that. So it's worth the time to go ahead and add that if you do plan on doing any tours or open houses. One thing that sometimes people do, it's not as common anymore, but live streams. So there is a live stream option. We had Paragon add this back in 2020. We did a whole web series on YouTube. You can actually watch them too, but we did one that was working virtually. So being able to show listings virtually and open houses and creating events on social media to bring that on, still something you can do. The live stream link is right here. You can schedule one on a Zoom or any of those online streaming meeting platforms and go in and they can just watch it right from the tour that you're running live, right from the comfort of their own home if they want to. So you can go in and schedule those. Now, once I've gone through all of this, I'm going to hit save listing. I'm ready to make it live. It's going to go out to all the places that I talked about. And once it's live, it is immediately live in the MLS system. our data shares that are on our system from our regional data shares, so all the ones that we vendor. We have a lot of vendored MLS agents on here as well. So that's going to be immediately live. It's going to then immediately get a push notification to anybody who's set up on Collaboration Center, anybody who's set up on auto emails as a new listing that met their criteria. And then within about half hour to an hour, it's on all the syndication channels and the IDX websites. So any other data shares can be anywhere from about 15 minutes to about an hour, depending on what we call it is the bus. So when the bus comes, you maybe just missed the bus. It could be 15 minutes if you put it in right then and there and walked up when the bus was at the bus stop. But if you just missed the bus driving away, it can be up to an hour. But they do pull, we try to have it pull every 15 minutes to the ones that are not MLSs we data share vendor with. That makes sense, which there is a few. Now, once that listing is live, you are going to get an email for your single property website. And it'll say, congratulations on your new listing. Here's your single property website to start promoting the listing. Now, if you missed that email or you don't want to go digging for your email, you have your listing pulled up, you can actually give you the sample one real quick to show you where it's at, and then we'll go into the whole process of it. But if you were to pull up your listing, it's live in the system. You'll see this little house with a check mark. You can open that up. This is your our custom single property websites that we designed with a web developer that automatically gets made on every one of the MyRealSource listings. And now you have something that is branded to you to share out to your client so that they can get it out there. You can put it on your Facebook business page, all the social media platforms, link it within any of your mass emails that you do. And what's really nice about it is that it doesn't have advertising from other agents. So some of these advertising portals, people can pay for advertising placements. And so it's your listing, but your name and your brokerage is not even next to the main photos. It's buried down deep. That is not the case with this. So a lot of times people are excited and they want to show that it's out and it's live and they want to, you know, put that information out there, let their clients know, see it's here, it's on these sites. And then they share from that. And really that's not going to capture any leads for you or do you any justice here. So what's nice is it's only you and only your listings. So you'll have your past listings, your pending listings, and your current active listings. So they can reach out, you can capture a lead from here. They can reach out to schedule a showing. The photos are really high resolution. I've seen some listing reports be shared or other sites, some IDX too, where they're not that mobile friendly. They're also kind of smaller photos. I love how large these photos are. Beautiful home here. Loving that island. But if this agent or this broker would have put captions and descriptions, they'd be floating down below the photos as well, just like in the gallery view. You can very easily share right from Facebook here. And it also has accessibility widget added to this too. We did this a couple years ago. So if there's anybody who has any visual impairment, they can go in and they can set anything that is going to allow them to be able to read the captions, view them easier, make things larger, all of that. So anything that they would need. Now, if I wanted to share this, like I said, you hit the little share icon. You're already connected to your business page, swap over to your business page. If you're on your personal page, you can choose a page that you manage, toggle over. You want to share your listings per Facebook's terms of service, as well as doing yourself justice and promoting the property, is you're going to want to share your listing to a business page. Now, a business page is required for their terms of service because you're doing anything for commercial gain. So anything that is for commercial gain needs to be shared on a business page first. That does not mean you can't reshare it to your personal page if you wanted to, but the original source that they're seeing is always going to be your business page. So when you share that, you're going to hit share. I recommend, if you took the time to write some really nice remarks, go ahead and paste a few sentences worth of your remarks in there. But about 3 sentences is what I recommend. An attention grabber, highlight something about the home, reach out to me to schedule a showing, a call to action of some sort. So I have a sample of this here. But this is where you can see how it loads. It loads a large primary photo, not a little tiny thumbnail, the address, and allows you to add the caption and description. And then when they click on it, it's going to open that single property website right up for you. Now, I did cover it briefly, but I like to close with this before handing it off officially to Colleen, is we have a product called Cubicasa that I mentioned. Now, Cubicasa has a lot of capabilities to it besides just floor plans. So that's some more promotional video, tours, interactive floor plans, things like that that you can add on as an upgrade with 20% off. But you have to be signed up through My Real Source to get the basic floor plan included. You'll know you're under the right link to sign up because it's under resources. You want to do this one first under resources, and then it will open up. You'll see our logo at the top, and you can sign in. That URL is tied to our database, and when you create that account, you can now download the Cubicasa app, put your login in, and you can start doing scans on all of your listings. Up to 5,000 square feet is included. It gives you the different room dimensions, so you can get that broken down for you. It's very accurate. We've looked into this. We've tested it ourselves on the accuracy of the dimensions, and it's pretty impressive, actually. There are real people that are piecing this scan together for the floor plan. It's not all just done by computer. It is being looked at by real people behind the scenes. And then you get that image sent over and a report sent over with just the basic scan that you get through My Real Source. We have a whole class on this. Colleen teaches an amazing class on this where she walks through all the features, all the benefits, as well as does a live tour for you guys on how to do the scan. So just keep that in mind. Sign up for your Cubicasa account because a floor plan should be a part of your listing before it goes live, and always following the primary photo too. So keep that in mind. Colleen, was there any questions or anything that I should mention or show real quick before handing it off to you?
I don't think so. Now is a great time if you do have any questions for Taylor to throw them in the questions box. But I thought you did a great job of covering everything.
Thank you. Same to you. All right, let me send this back to you for the statuses, and then we'll be done.
All right, sounds
We're
good.
making good time too.
Hey, we did. We'll even get him out of here a minute early, I think.
Yeah, the last class I ran over a little bit, so making progress.
Awesome. I love it. All right. All right, so just to wrap up, so again, if you have any questions, now's a great time to throw those in the questions box. Just wanted to wrap up with a couple questions that usually come in right about now. And it's regarding statuses of listings. And so there's actually a brand new status that is going to be added, and NAR just kind of defined it. And so it will be added down the road to the MLS, and it is regarding the CCP rule that was created, and it's regarding delayed marketing of listings. So a lot of statuses, but I do want to cover a couple of them that are there now. One is the coming soon status. Coming soon status is if you have a listing that maybe your seller needs a little bit of time to maybe complete some paint, or maybe they have to replace the carpeting, things like that, and you want some time before it gets shown to market the property. Keep in mind, if you're coming in from one of our vendor MLSs, the time frames may be different. And the rules may be different. Here at My Real Source, our coming soon status works like this. And kind of let me give you a real quick background so it makes a little bit more sense. It kind of was derived around pocket listings. So what was happening in some areas of the country, there were some agents that were kind of behaving badly. And so NAR had to step in and basically create the rule. And what was derived from it was agents were basically putting listing signs in the windows of listings or on the front lawn. And then what was happening is the great agents like yourselves were driving around with your buyers, and they would see this listing and they'd say, oh, great agent, could you get me into that house? The great agent would go back into the MLS, try to pull up the house, and lo and behold, couldn't find it, right? So the great agent, being the great agent they are, goes back, they call the number on the sign, they're calling. A few days later, showing buyers around again. Buyers are saying, when are you going to get us in that house? Lo and behold, you can't get into the house. You can't get the agent to return your call, but yet, guess what? Finally goes into the MLS and immediately, bam, it's pending, right? And guess who it's pending with? The listing agent, right? So we were seeing that a lot. So NAR stepped in and created a rule that said, you know what, if you are going to basically advertise a house, you have one business day to get that house into the MLS so others can see it. So it basically levels the playing field, right? Because let's face it, you, the great agent, might have brought a much higher and better offer than that listing agent, but you couldn't get your people in there. So it really wasn't fair. It wasn't good for the buyers, it wasn't good for the sellers, and pretty much everybody lost out. And so they created what we call the coming soon status. And it works like this. You can have a status, and for My Real Source, again, our rules may be different than the vendor MLSs. For My Real Source, it can be up to 7 days. It doesn't have to be the full 7 days. It could be 2 days. It does have to go into the MLS within one business day, can be a coming soon status for up to 7 days, and it does have to have an activation date. That activation date says when the property is available for showings, cannot be more than 7 days. And no one in the coming soon status, not the broker, not the agent, not the team, no one can show that property in that coming soon status. So that is what coming soon statuses are. Keep in mind, there's another one. This is my least favorite status in the MLS. It's called accepting backup offers. Guess what? As a licensee in Michigan, your license law says that you have to present all offers anyway to your seller. So you always really did this, but now we have a status for it. What it really means is that it's got a pending offer. It's pretending to be active, but it's really sold. So you might want to tell your buyers when they're seeing this status, hey, just so you don't fall too much in love with this house, because technically there's an offer and it's signed and it's probably going to close, but we can still see it because they're leaving it active. By the way, little note, if you use that status ABO, you do want to note that it's using all those days as active. And when it comes to the expiration of the listing, it's still showing active. So you got to be careful with that status. But not my favorite status, but it is there. So you do need to know what it means. Also, some people will say when you list a property, well, Colleen, we've been on the market a while. I want to take it off the market and refresh it. It used to be back in the day, 25 years ago when I got my license, that you could take it off for a day and put it back on and it would refresh the listing. Or you could change the price by $1 and it would refresh the listing. That's how we used to do it. That was like our cheat to make it look new again. But that certainly was before all of the IDX sites like Zillow and Realtor.com, where they keep track of what we call COM, cumulative days on market. And so now, if you wanted to refresh a listing, you have to take it off for a full 30 days, meaning a full 30 calendar days. When you put it back on, it will actually, on day 31, it would actually reset the clock. So it is a new listing at that point. So a couple things you need to know. And then lastly, you can clone a listing, but you can only clone that listing if it is your listing. And you can, of course, never clone another agent's photos or virtual tours without a written consent. And of course, Taylor really covers that a lot further in her copyright class. So if you have not had a chance to sign up for that, we'll have another one here coming in the next quarter. It's a great way to get your 2 hours of legal Con Ed credits, and it certainly does. It's a phenomenal class. We've had nothing but great reviews. So that's a phenomenal class to take too. And lastly, we are going to be sending out a quick survey. We'd love to know what you thought of this class. If there's anything that we missed, anything you thought we could do better. We try to get it all in 2 hours, which is tight. As you can see, we usually get down to the minute. But we do want to make sure that we've answered all of your questions, and we always, as always, appreciate your feedback, letting us know what you liked about the class, and if there's anything you didn't like about the class equally. So that'll be coming out soon as we close this class down. So Taylor, anything I missed?
Just a couple questions. I did answer some of them directly, but one of them was just wanting to know what are the next upcoming photo classes. I pasted 2 of the URLs in the chat, as well as sent a direct reply to that one, so you can register for it. But the next one coming up is in June. I think it was June 12th. And then we have one later in the summer too in August. So go ahead and register for that. And then another question was just kind of asking about where the captions and descriptions, how they get placed. It kind of depends on the vendor. So some vendors, some syndication, they have a whole section that's just there that doesn't cut off the photo or go over the photo overlay. And then other places that just kind of bounces up and down if the cursor is there with the captions and descriptions, similar to the gallery view in Paragon that I demonstrated. So it really depends, but it's going to usually be at the bottom of each photo in some way. And does get sent out to syndication, collaboration center, data sharing that pulls it as long as they agree to display it. Some MLS systems don't always display them, but and single property website, IDX, all of them get the descriptions, and most of them do display and pull those for you. So
awesome,
good
too.
question.
And then I just wanted to let you know too, the updated sheet that I mentioned, if you would like that for your CMA. So if you're new and maybe you don't have a lot of content in your CMA and you want to talk about the different sites that you're going to make sure that their home is on, that's actually on your screen. If you want that, just let us know in the survey. Hey, I'd love to have a copy of that sheet. I did leave some room at the bottom so you can add your logo and your name as well. So again, just let us know in the survey if you'd like a copy of that, and we'll get that out to you. So at least you've got some new marketing pieces that you can bring into your CMA. So I think we did good. I think we made it a minute early. We rock.
Nice. Look at us. It's a lot of content. I know it's a lot of content. So go ahead and take the individual classes on all these products. This is that class that kind of ties it all together. And we do have another class too that's similar to that Colleen and I teach, where we tie some products together, called the Tools for Tackling Low Inventory. That's in the education corner as well, where we cover several products that you already have with My Real Source and how to capture leads and listings for potential sellers, and using social media and content to get out there. So tools you already have and how to strategically market them. So that's a class that covers a lot of products as well, but how they all work together, similar to this one.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Go out and list some properties. We certainly need the inventory. We appreciate you being with us, and we look forward to seeing you on future classes. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Taylor.
Bye.